Hello, this is part 3 of the bowling alley project. I have on the screen a rendered sample after I cleaned mine up a little bit. If you used the image for this part of your bowling lanes, no doubt you've got bowling pins showing up here. And you can't have that because you're going to make your own pins and animate them. This is very easy to cover up. I'm going to zoom in, then I need to create a new vector layer and name it something like cover. I'll click on the draw shape tool and choose the rectangle, and I'm going to make this match the color what's back here. You can do this by clicking on this little eyedropper icon, dragging it over to here. You can see if I drag this icon around, it's picking up whatever color it passes over. Anyway, this is pretty much black right here. Yours might be different. Then I'll click OK. I'll start out by drawing a rectangle across. Now I need to look down here and make sure that my new layer is going to be above this layer, the layer that has the lane in it. So I'll just drag this up here. Yours may have been fine. At this point, if you need to do any kind of shaping up, you can do that. Click on the Transform Points tool. You may need to adjust them individually. You may need to add a point, for example. Then if for some reason I needed to have a curved, I could do that. Okay, so pretty easy to cover up those pins. And if you drew your bowling alley parts, then this wouldn't be an issue. You would have dealt with that while you were drawing. So I've zoomed out, and this is how it looks. Now I've got a big blank spot for my pins. Now here's a tip about the bowling ball. Obviously you know how to draw a circle, and you know how to add shading to make it look a little more three-dimensional. So what size should you make the bowling ball? A bowling ball is approximately 1/5 the width of a lane. So just imagine that you would fit about 5 bowling balls across here at the beginning part of the lane. Don't forget to hold your Shift key down to draw a perfect circle. That's going to be very important when you have to roll your ball. Let me drag my ball layer up over here so I can see it. Obviously, you apply color and shading the usual way. Clicking on Select Shape, activating it, and then working with fill, maybe removing stroke, using an effect, and so forth. So I paused the video and I applied some effects to my ball, and then I'll click on Transform Layer, and I see that my bounding box does not fit squarely around the ball. Again, that's going to be a huge issue when I try to animate it. So be sure that you click on Set Origin and then locate the center of the ball to the best of your ability. And then you can drag it down here below the stage because that's where it's going to start. So click on Transform Layer and just set it down there for safekeeping. Now onto the pins. I strongly recommend that you put all the pins together in a bone folder. New layer, bone, and name it pins. Whether you draw your pins from scratch or you use one of the images that I provided, you still need to just start out with one and get that set up first. Let me show you what I mean. First off, I'm going to click here on New Layer, and I'll go ahead and just get the image of the pin. I'll select the old bowling pin and click Open. Obviously it's too large and I need to get my layers in order in the layer stack, and we'll get to that. But first off, take this pin and drag it into the pin bone folder. Then in my case, the pin bone folder needs to be on a layer above that black cover that I put. So I'll drag that up here and release. And now I'll resize that pin. I'll have to start zooming in. I need to look at the other pins here in my image and use those as a guide for what the size should be. And now I've zoomed in a little bit so that I could work with that sizing a little bit easier. But I'm going to zoom in even more to show you something extremely important. If you don't do this, you're going to have a really hard time managing the animation of your pins. Go over here and click on the Set Origin icon. And we need to set the origin of these pins at the base in the center. Okay, so click and drag around there until you get it very near the bottom and in the middle part of the bottom, because the pins are going to need to fall over. All right, that needs to be their center of gravity down here. Now switching over here briefly to a diagram of pin arrangement. If you've never bowled, then you may not be aware of how pins are set up. But the number 1 there on the screen is the pin that's front and center. 2 and 3 are just a little behind that. 4, 5, and 6 a little behind that, and so forth. Okay? And so when you arrange your pins here, this is the general guideline you're going to use. They won't be this far spread apart from bottom to top. Okay, they'll actually probably be a lot closer together, but more spread apart horizontally, okay, from side to side, as far as how you're going to need to arrange yours here in your bowling alley. But this is how you want to set them up. This is how you want to number them. It will help you a lot to keep everything straight once you start animating all these pins. So let me get you started on how to go about this. For one thing, I borrowed the old bowling pin image. So I'm going to double click on this and I'm going to name it pin 1, just like that. This way, when I duplicate this pin, it's going to give me subsequent numbers, pin 2, 3, 4, and so on. Next, I need to make sure that my very first pin is situated front and center, and it needs to be far enough forward that I can put all the other pins in rows behind it and still have enough room where it isn't getting crammed up too high above this black background here. So I can adjust this with the Transform Layer tool, right? Get this pin front and center. Once I feel like good, this is working out, go back over here, click on the Duplicate Layer, and then I have pin 2. Now remember, all the other pins need to be behind each other. They need to be below. So pin 1 would be at the top of this group within the pin folder. So I've got pin 2 highlighted over here, and then I can click on that one and move it up a little higher and to the left. It has to go up a little higher because this is going to give the illusion that they are rows of the pins. And then I would click, make another duplicate, drag 3 below 2, and then if I hold my Shift key down and drag 3 over, then it will stay even. It will stay on the same plane with 2. Remember, it's 1 in the front and then 2, 3. And then clicking on the pin 3, duplicate that. Pin 4, drag it below 3. Pin 4 is on the next row. And then it's on that same row is 4, 5, and 6. And then below that is 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think you get the idea of what I'm explaining. Go ahead and complete all 10 pins, get them set up exactly the way that you want them. I'm going to pause now and I will continue in the next video.